It's warm enough now that I'm going to dump the oil out of it. What I'll do is I'll put my little jack underneath the back of it, and I'll lift it up, and I'll take the wheel off. That way it gives me access to the drain tube here. A little bit easier to make sure it doesn't go all over the place. Snowblowers are so rattly and noisy when they run. It's crazy. I just shut the mic off and let it do its thing. All right. Hoist back up. Stand underneath. Let's get that oil changed. Moving on. I've got the shear pin, well, the bolts that were in there, I've got them out, so these freewheel now. They're a little stiff. I'm probably going to take them apart and clean all that off, but anyways, I'm going to split this unit because we got a growling noise going on back here that I don't like. Not sure if we can hear it. There is a braking system that stops those augers, and that braking system should be disabled because I've got the belt off, the auger belt off, and the lever squished down, so the brake should be off the pulley. But anyways, we're going to split it. I'm going to take it apart here. I think I'm going to take these two bolts out of here first, and then I'll take the two side support bushings out, and then the shaft and the gearbox and all the augers and everything should be able to come out. So that's what I'm going to do. That's the plan. Couple of bolts over here. They should fall. There we go. Couple of bolts on this side. Those are loose now. I gotta get in there and get those 7/16 off of there. I'm gonna get in with an air ratchet just because it's faster, and I have one. That's fast. One bolt out. Standard bolt. Meaning it's not a shear bolt. I'm not sure if this is supposed to have shear bolts or not. I did work on one machine that had shear bolts back here too. I'll check a parts list, see if it's supposed to be shear bolts. If it is, I'll just put shear bolts in it. So hopefully this shaft is not stuck in the impeller. Oh, it doesn't look like it. That's just, this whole unit should slide right out now. Should. Oh no, because the pulley is still attached on the other end. So it's that won't come out till we get everything tilted forward. Dang it. Yeah, well, it is what it is. Got to reposition the machine, get a support under the handles now, and tilt it. So let's get this stuff out of the way. So back you out a little. Need to get a support under the back handle here because I got to pull one bolt here and one bolt matching on the other side, and then this unit should split open like this. But let's get the chute off of there because it's connected with cables. Should be able to just take one bolt out of that, or one nut, and lift that chute right off. Yeah, 9/16 it is. So that's the bracket that holds the cable assembly. That just flops out of the way, and this should come off. There we go. Out of the way. Just throw it on the floor for now. Now that's our auger belt. Let's have a look-see down in there. You guys can't see it, but I can look in there. Something's awful growly back here. Could be something stuck in behind the impeller, between the impeller and the housing. It must be, because only the impeller is turning. The shaft isn't. There's got to be something stuck in behind the impeller. It's just everything is so tight you can't see anything. Oh. I see something. Actually, it looks like a bolt. A bolt came loose. Dang it, we gotta split it. Yeah, there it is. Wow. Can't say I've seen that. You're gonna see it because we gotta split it now. But what it is the back of the shaft, the impeller goes, the shaft goes through the impeller, then it goes through the housing, and it goes into a bearing. So that bearing is on a diamond-shaped plate with a bearing in the middle, and there's two holes in these sides for the bolts to go through. So the bolts go through from this side, and there's nuts on the back to hold them on. This one has no nuts, and the bearing is actually not in its position. So the bolts are kind of hanging there and they're dropped down. But I've never seen it before. Crazy. But it's definitely got to be split. We got to pull a pulley off and get that bearing situated and go from there. Sometimes there's stones getting behind there, but not in this case. This case, it's a bigger problem than that. There's one of those bolts out. I don't want to take the other one out because it'll just flop. So I got something. What am I going to put under there? I know. I got to stand outside. Got my workmate underneath there now. Hopefully that's enough to do what we need it to do. I'm just going to go to the other side and pop that other bolt out. Carefully. Got to hang on to stuff. There we go. Everything just shifted. So that's going backwards. That's going forwards. There's our belt, the auger belt. Make sure it's not hooked around anything. The bottom should just be kind of hooked in there. Maybe it actually has to tilt back a little further to unhook. You're gonna stay? Nope, you're gonna fall. We'll try that. Far enough. There's our auger belt. The hooks are unhooked now. Now they're close to being unhooked. There we go. Blower housing is disconnected. Auger belt. And because everything is so tight in between the auger pulley and this drive pulley, you have to do this just to change this belt because it will not fit out between them. Yeah. Fun. Well, that definitely explains the crunchy. This belly pan's full of stuff. We'll get to that. Okay, let me see what I gotta do here because I can't work on everything on the bench at the same time, so I might just move the engine assembly backwards a little. Go a little further. Yeah, that should hold. If it doesn't, it's going that way, so I'm okay with that. There's a brake shoe here I was telling you about. You probably can't see it, but it's right there. It's a brake shoe that sits on that pulley. Let's turn this around. Get a block or something for under there. See that? That ain't right. Half-inch socket. That's not tight. Somebody's definitely been in here. That bearing is nowhere near where it's supposed to be. Have a look-see at that. That ain't right. This bolt is actually pushed in and rubbing on the back of the impeller. So is this one. Not sure if I'm going to actually be able to move that. Oh, there you go. There's our bearing housing, which is still okay. The bearing is not actually bad. What kind of bearing is that? 6203. I would change it if it needed it, but it don't need it. Huh. These are just spinning. I think we have to get the impeller off, which means we'll have to pull this bearing. Just hoping it'll come free easily. Does not look like it. Let's get some penetrating oil on it. Snowblowers get uniquely rusty. Where a lawnmower doesn't always get rusty, but snowblowers do, because once you blow the end of your driveway out where the snowplow's been, there's all kinds of salt out there. I wonder if I could work that out. I do have bearing pullers that I might have to use here, because I can't hold these bolts to get everything back on and tight. Okay, bearing puller. A lot of work on this one. A lot of more in-depth work that we don't normally do. Actually, not every video can be a quick clean the carburetor and make it happen, or not every one can be like that. So we get my clamp in behind there, if it'll do it. Perhaps. Come on. There's another style of puller that's just got two outside edges that go around here and pull. Doesn't matter what you're trying to do with it, usually it's set up incorrectly for the application. So, and this one's not going to do it. Will it? Can't really get in behind it. Huh. Well, it's got penetrating oil on it. I'm going to see if I could just gently tap the shaft out and leave the bearing sitting where it is. Let's see what happens. Rubber mallet. As to not harm the end of this. Suppose I can put the bolt in it. Standard coarse thread 5/16 bolt. It's probably going to be too long to fit all the way in. Yes, it is. But we're going to try it. We're going to whack it. It's moving. Slow, but it's moving. It's moving. More penetrating oil in there. Spray everything. Oh my God, you guys didn't see any of that stuff. So I took all kinds of footage of me getting this all apart without realizing that the camera was zoomed into a spot about 2 square inches and you didn't see diddly. Anyways, we got it apart. It was an adventure. And this is what I was telling you about. This is the impeller. This is what throws the snow into the chute. This mark right here is where the bolts for that bearing were rubbing. It was a mess. And you guys didn't see any of it. Okay, the gearbox feels good. It's not on camera. You guys can't see it. I'm on the other side of the machine, but the gearbox feels okay. There's no leakage, so it's still full. What a disaster. Had to use my air hammer to get this thing out. We're going to clean all the rust off the shafts so I can get the new get the bearing back on. If I have a 6203, I'll put one in it, but 6203, it's not terrible. It's a little noisy, but it's not horrible. I might actually have those bearings. 6204s I normally stock. That's deck bearings for most MTD mowers. Huh. Uh-huh. What say you? Well, son of a 6203. Jettison. New bearing. Okay, I'm just going to clean the rusty drive shaft up. Just a little sandpaper, clean it, a little anti-seize on it, and then we'll get it all set back in. We'll get this bearing plate back over here with the bolts tight the way they should be. I believe that I'm going to put nylock nuts on it so they don't fall off again. And carry on. You can see there's a little oblong, well, you may not be able to see it, but there's a little oblong wear here in the housing because of where the shaft was, when the bearing housing was sitting above the bolts. Inconsequential. Once we put the bearing and the support plate and everything in there, the bolts and everything will hold it into alignment where it needs to be. But yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to clean up the drive shaft, the prop shaft that goes through everything. We'll get it set back in there and basically hang it back together. Okay, after a lot of fidgeting and messing around, we got it back together. Anyways, I could not replace that bearing because the bearing that I had, the inner bore was a little too small. It wasn't going to fit, so I ended up just greasing the old one and putting it back in. It's still a little growly, but it's fine. There's no rust or anything in it. It was just a little dry. So anyways, we've got that pillow block bearing now secured. And it's like a chess game. You got to put things together in a certain order or else you'll either not be able to tighten the bolt or you won't be able to get the impeller in, or so it's got to be like a kind of a pre-assembly, kind of wiggle it in and get it half kind of aligned with blocks of wood. And then basically I was just pulling on the impeller shaft with my hand and tapping the pillow block bearing under the pulley, tapping that in to get the shaft to come through that bearing. So, and then I got the nut on there nice and tight. So the impeller's spinning. Actually got a lot of air coming out of it right now. Impeller's spinning, that's okay. The augers are turning. I've already replaced the shear pins. I actually put real shear pins in it instead of bolts. I just got to put it back together. That's easy. It'll hook in here, just spin around, it'll hook on that bottom shaft there, and then we'll just tip it up, put bolt here and bolt there, make sure they're tight, otherwise the thing starts to go all over the place. And that's fine. We're not going to change a belt because it's like brand new. I'm not going to bother. If it was a little bit old and cracked, I would put a new one in it just so I don't have to do it next year for the customer. This is a resale machine, so hopefully I'll see it back for service once every year or two for tune-up, oil change, and stuff like that. But anyways, I got to clear some of the specialty tools that I use to do this disaster, and we can get everything organized back on the bench again, and we can get the two halves back together. All right, so I'm a little better organized now with that mess taken care of. So I've just kind of shimmied the front and the back together, and I've got the belt in there. You got to make sure you get that in there first, or else you're not getting it in after. And now we just basically got to kind of tip them together so we can get these bolts in. There's two bolts on the top. Oh, there's one that just about lined up. Started by hand. Run it down a little bit with a gun. Didn't want to bottom it out, but there you go. It's run down. Just gotta make sure our other side is still playing nice, which it is. There we go. They're kind of together, so I'll get the brace out from underneath the engine side. That way it can sit where it's happy. Stay. Lift these up. Give her a good hammer down. so they don't slide. I'm gonna rip my camera off the bench in a second because my cord. Done. That's done. Get you guys zoomed in a little bit on the belt there. Whoa. Of course, chute's in the way. Of course. Of course. And now we just got to tuck the belt back under. Well, that should be much, much gooder. I mean, better. I mean, yeah, that'll work. Let's get that clamp off of the handle. Just give the engine a little bit of a rotate, maybe. Help us get that belt on there. There we go. She's good and on. Just got to reach in there and tighten those 2 bolts that I thought may be shear pins. You can just see them. These 2 bolts here, just got to tighten those up. On one of the machines I worked on, they were actually shear bolts. On this one, they're just regular bolts. 1/4-inch bolts. 7/16 socket and wrench. I'm just going to reach in there and just run these down. They're not overly long, so ding, ding. Snug that one up. So you can see our new shear. No, you can't. Whoop. You can see our new shear pin there. There's one there, one on this side. While I had it apart and all the augers and everything out, I cleaned the stub shafts from the gearbox. They're only 4 inches long or so, 4.5. They only go partially into the tube. So I cleaned them and greased them, both sides. And this doesn't have bearings in the ends of the auger bar. It's just basically a bushing. It's a plastic bushing here, and it just rides on the outside of this pipe. So I just cleaned all the rust off, put some grease in there. So that's nice. Well, the handle is up, but yeah, it's, if I take the slack, put the slack in the belt, that actually rotates nice and free. Beautiful. No screeching, growling noise. So, front end is done. Finally. Where to next? Oh, still got to flip it up onto its nose. We'll lower the lift table, flip it up on its nose, and I'll take the belly pan off and get the drive system all lubed and cleaned. Put the belt cover back on it, put the chute back on it. We can do that right now. That's easy enough. Here's the chute. Let's set that into place. Uh-oh. I don't remember where that was. The cables are only so long, so I think it was just kind of off-center to the right a little. That's where we'll set it anyways. That's what we're going with. Check it right now. Yep, the control handle's just off to the right, so that's where it was. Get this nylock nut run down. Give it a quick test. Nice. That works. We're still waiting on a spring for that impeller linkage at the back there. I've ordered one and it's not in yet. So we just need to replace that mechanics wire with the proper spring that gives it the right tension for the belt for the impeller. We can do the drive. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do this or not. Good Lord, don't fall off. Is it too high? Well, let's wait till it's on the ground. Hang on. All right, so we got it situated on the bench here where we can get to the stuffs. Maybe. Of course, this one's got bolts down the side. Or most don't. I think the Husqvarnas do. Let's pull these wheels off. We can get to those side bolts rather easy. while I had things apart, I did clean these up and put anti-seize on the shafts, so we'll be able to get them on and off for servicing later. One more bolt here. One more bolt here. Some nice carpet underpad, some underlay. That ain't supposed to be there. Leaves and mouse nest. Belly pan's not rotted out. That's a bonus. A lot of the time they are completely rotted. So the drive system I was telling you about that we're going to lubricate is this hexagonal shaft up here. This friction pulley moves back and forth across there. That's what gives you your gears and your speeds. The acorns out of there. Well, it's rather simple. All I do is I get a rag, spray some penetrating oil on the rag, wipe the old grease down, wipe it off, and then put some new lithium grease on it. It makes it operate much smoother. Let's get that shifter all the way to one side. Let's go all the way that way first. I'm just cleaning the old thick grease off of there, just so it's not quite so stiff to operate. Outside's good. All the way the other way. Get that grease off of there. These are nice. There's no chain in them. It's just gear on gear. It's much better than the old chain style. I think some of the lesser ones are still chain. But this is a better built machine. It's not a bottom feeder. It's a better built one. All right, grab some lithium grease. White lithium grease. And just want a tiny little bit on there. Not too much. You don't want it flinging everywhere. You don't want it on the rubber pulley. You don't want it on this friction disc. Just a little bit. Just smear it all over there. So we got the one side coated. We'll move the gear selector over to the back to the other side. And it's just a little bit more to go on this side. Back and forth. Make sure it's coated. Keeps rust off. There we go. That's it. That's it for that. Put this grease away and grab the oil can. We'll just put a couple of drops of oil on all the moving parts. A little bit of oil on these gears. Not too much, just a couple of drops. It's really all you need. If you get too much in there, then it goes everywhere. Should do that. Drop oil on this bushing. Just a drop. Drop here on this where the axle goes through. It's also a bushing. Drop here on this. Anything that moves. Actually, we'll get up in here too. It's metal and it's outside in the winter. It cannot hurt to put a little bit of lubricant on everything that moves. That's that. Button up the belly pan. Wait for a spring to replace this wire and just adjust the length of that rod. This unit's done. And with that being said, I'm just going to close out this video here because all that's left is a couple of bolts and a spring. So, yeah, it was a donation to the Random Wrenching Fleet. Thanks again to my buddy CB, who donated it to me, and I'm sure this is going to be a great machine. It runs really good. It's a big machine, 10 horse, so it'll move a lot of snow. Out here where we are, we're pretty rural out here, and we get a lot of snow, big drifts and stuff. So anyways, guys, I'm sure I got something else to do today, so thanks again for joining me. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment down below, and subscribe if you wish. If you do subscribe, give that bell a click as well. It'll notify you when I upload new videos. And until the next one, take care.